Hello and welcome to this brief video about the MAYM final. It's nice to see everyone. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about a couple of deadlines. I've already gotten some of you all's discussion questions, and I'll get those back in the next week or so, hopefully. And then you'll have boiled the discussion questions, interview questions down to about eight or nine by the end. And those will be the ones that will guide you through your interview with this adolescent. So for your final paper, you're going to interview an adolescent of your choice who's not part of your family, and you're going to be, you might even want to choose an adolescent who matches the concern that you discussed in your midterm, although you might not as well. There's no necessary tie-in there. A couple of the most important things I want to say during this video is that you have to make sure that you get the informed consent form from the back of the syllabus, Appendix A, the very last 2 pages. You have to get those signed by a parent or guardian, and I'm going to ask for those to be due to me a week before your finals due. So on May 6th at 6 p.m., that would be Wednesday, the day before our final retreat. I'd like to have all of the PDFs of those signed informed consents from everybody in the class in my file before we get started on the last retreat, and then I'll know everyone's ready to go with their interviews. So the purpose of this exercise is to see how really the big themes of the class, identity and faith development, are linked. And so you're going to engage a story, the life story of an adolescent, and you might first ask them to fill out the River of Life exercise found in Mercer, or not. But you're going to take about an hour, and you're going to record their responses through audio. And I could see you also doing that with video if you wanted to in this instance, but you just need to make sure you get permission for that and get that checked off on your form. And another point is to make sure that you thank the student for engaging and sharing their story with you. That's going to be an important part of the closing of the interview. Some of you have talked with me about some privacy concerns. Some of your youth groups have a mandated situation where other people need to be present if you talk to a youth. And so for that instance, I encourage you to try to think ahead of time about an adult or another mentor in your youth group who might be able to be on that Zoom call. It might change the dynamics a little bit, but it also might not make too much of a difference once the interview starts rolling. So you could invite a family member of the person, or an adult from the youth group, or someone else from the church who's involved in the youth ministry that the youth already trusts, and you just ask them to sit present in the back of the Zoom call if that's an important part of your congregation's practice. And so these papers are going to be 13 to 15 double-spaced pages, and they're primarily going to be focused on what the teen told you and less so additional research. So it's not a culmination of the midterm paper necessarily, but rather it's a change of subject towards this interview style. And I got this idea from Dijkstra's book, and students really enjoy this. They often say it's one of their favorite parts of the class. After you write the paper, I recommend that you share it with the young person that you interviewed and offer them a chance to write a postscript for that, so that's no more than 300 words. And it's going to be important in this paper that you change the name of the person, and if you have long quotes from the adolescent, try just to thematize things that they've said rather than including the full quote, because that'll take up a lot of your paper. So conversations about abuse, self-destructive behaviors, or deep psychological concerns are really beyond the scope of this project. It's not like a counseling session as per Dijkstra or something like that, or Levenkron. So it's not a psychological assessment, and if such subjects are raised, you don't want to pursue them in a kind of diagnostic fashion. And indeed, in some cases, if you hear disclosures of abuse, you might be a mandatory reporter in that instance. And if a student is a danger to themselves, you'll be a mandated reporter. I have the Texas Abuse Hotline phone number, but I encourage you to do that in conversation. Make that report in conversation with your supervisor in your field placement setting. I wouldn't expect that to be a part of this conversation, given how it's gone in the past. So don't feel like that's a major concern. So you're going to listen to the audio, and then you're going to draw the paper together based on what you've learned in this class, and you're going to change the identifying features of the adolescent, including their name. It's surprising how there's overlap between people I know and people you might know, and so you want to change those identifying features. Additionally, don't talk with anybody else in your class about what you find in your interview, but give the person confidentiality. And then you also need to assure the young person that you're going to destroy this audio recording and not keep it and not share it with anyone else. So the paper is going to be 13 to 15 double-spaced pages, and it's going to talk about what you've learned in the course of pastoral care for adolescents, linked with this particular adolescent story. So how do the theological themes of this young person's story show up? And how are they defining faith and negotiating their faith even as they tell their own story? And you might pay careful attention to aspects that we've covered in class, such as social identity, gender, ethnicity, and religion. And then the rubric that I'm going to have you work with to grade this paper is creativity, communicating through the power of story, this particular adolescent's worldview, empathic engagement. That's an ability to experience different from one's own thoughts and feelings. So empathy isn't necessarily feeling with someone, but it's rather kind of getting in the emotional shoes of that experience just for a little bit, while at the same time keeping a boundary and noticing your difference from them. Style, employing an adequate use of grammar, diction, style, proper use of footnotes if you use them, and a professional appearance of the work. For this, you might go back through and just do a double spell check, and you might read the whole paper aloud to yourself once or twice before turning it in to catch any typographical errors. Finally, respect. This is one of the most important because an adolescent is really trusting you with their story. So you want to convey a tone and timbre of respect in this work, the kind of honoring of the experience of being an adolescent that I think you really see so well in a work like Edget or Siegel, where there's a real kind of empathy and understanding for the experience of adolescence without jumping into that experience necessarily. So that paper is going to be due May 13th at 6 p.m. And I think there's several of you who are seniors, and I'm going to make sure that I get the grades turned around for you seniors first. But again, the most important deadline now, before the May 13th deadline, is May 6th to get a signed consent form, which is at the bottom of the syllabus. And that signed consent form needs to be filled out. That signed consent form needs to be filled out by an adult who's the primary caregiver, a guardian or parent for this child and for this adolescent. And you want to make sure that you give a full disclosure about what this is for and how it will be used, and then how you're going to get rid of the recording in like a 3 to 6 months' time. Make sure that they know that you're not going to hold on to this. So please let me know if there's any questions about this. Again, I'm really excited that you're doing it. I find that students do really interesting work here, and they often are able to integrate the themes of the class in a powerful way. And like Dykstra says in his introduction in his book, it's often the only time, adolescents report, it's often the only time when a grown-up has sat and listened to them for such an extended period of time. And so it can be a really powerful exercise in that sense as well. So I'm looking forward to learning from you in this and learning with you. Let me know if you have any questions about the final paper that I can get you prepared for. It's not too early to be thinking about the young person and to be thinking about how you're going to contact those parents and guardians and getting that form signed. I'll take them as early as now, and I'll take them all the way through May 6th, which is the deadline for those informed consent forms. So that's really important for you to be able to move forward with your interview. And then the final is due 13 to 15 double-spaced pages on May 13th at 6 p.m. Okay, and that's in Dropbox again. I've started your midterms and I'm really enjoying reading them. I can tell that this is going to be a rich season for me getting to look at these papers. Thanks for your hard work and for the ways that you're continuing to do pastoral care for young people in this time of transition, and the many ways that you're keeping them in mind and praying for them. And so I'm grateful for that. Okay, be well, and let me know if you have any questions stemming from this video.